Love to be here with us, but owing to circumstances beyond her control, she is unavoidably absent, and I'm here to step in her shoes. For your information, Madam Chair, Your Excellency, the UNFPA Resident Representative, Your Excellency, the British High Commissioner, WFD Country Representative, WFD Senior Program Officer, Africa, representatives of political parties here in present, state and non-state actors here in present, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am indeed humbled to be here today to make a statement in commemoration of the International Day of Democracy. Equally so, I am very pleased to represent the National Assembly on this remarkable day set aside by the UN for democracy, knowing fully well that democracy starts in Parliament. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, indeed, this year's International Day of Democracy is an opportunity to recall, as Gambians and the world in general, that democracy is about people. Democracy is built on inclusion, equal treatment, and participation, and it is a fundamental building block for peace, sustainable development, and human rights. I therefore wish to salute and congratulate the Westminster Foundation for Democracy through their country representative for organizing such an important event to mark it here in the Gambia. This day will in no doubt expose us to the core values of democracy. These further demonstrate that WFD is a true friend of the Gambia and the National Assembly in particular. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Democracy Day is also a time to review the state of democracy in one's country. This year, as a parliament and as the Interparliamentary Union has declared, we are focusing on the importance of parliamentary oversight, a core function of parliaments and a vital part of the checks and balances in any healthy democracy. The role of the legislature in promoting democracy and the rule of law cannot be overemphasized. It is common knowledge that the legislature is a crucial pillar in building and sustaining the core values of democracy, such as transparency, accountability, rule of law, inclusive governance, etc., etc. All it takes is the will and an effective oversight committee system within Parliament to deliver in our capacity as National Assembly. Thus, the question to ask are, what systems, laws, and rules are needed for the new Gambia? How do we deal with the challenges of our time to engender good governance principles? How do we create effective and efficient feedback mechanisms to build trust and confidence and have institutions that are robust and reliable? We do so through legislation to ensure that good laws that fully protect human rights, including the rights of minorities, are enacted, and that accountability mechanisms are strengthened to deliver value for money, that corruption is eliminated in our public finance management system, that space is created for non-state actors to participate constructively in political and socio-economic transformation. We are all aware that the Gambia performed badly in the areas of civil liberties and the rule of law over the past 22 years. Many people lost their lives at the hands of an autocratic regime that systematically disempowered the National Assembly. Journalists and political opponents were forced to flee, citizens sent to jail without due process, and civil society was rendered weak due to retrogressive laws. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you have an autocratic executive that disempowered the legislative arm of the state and reduced it, in many instances, to a mere rubber stamp. And an instrument of the executive. This is why it cannot be better said by President Obama while addressing African heads of state in Ghana. I quote, that Africa does not need strong men, it needs strong institutions, unquote. With the diversity, commitment, and determination of this fifth legislature, there is a window of opportunity to strengthen structures, systems, and processes to build a better Gambia for posterity. This is one of the reasons why we have recently established a committee on human rights and constitutional matters within the National Assembly committee system. This committee, among others, is tasked with the responsibility of performing checks on human rights and constitutional matters in our governance delivery system. As a democratic legislature, we will prioritize our three core functions of legislation, representation, and oversight to create the enabling environment for an open government and an open society. The Assembly will intervene in terms of enacting good laws to have the appropriate regulatory framework and environment, and will generate the conditions for sustainable democracy and good governance to flourish. It will also scrutinize the outputs of public service delivery systems to enhance efficiency. The National Assembly will ensure that our oversight committees are robust and effective, that their roles are taken seriously by the relevant stakeholders, and that the recommendations are given due considerations to enhance impact on the citizenry. Ladies and gentlemen, as a parliament in modern and young democracy, we will continue to create a space for citizens' engagement in our parliamentary oversight to complement our works, the works of legislators, and the apex oversight institution of the state. Citizens are the end users of the services and also the taxpayers. Therefore, as elected representatives of the people, it is our responsibility to ensure that public policies deliver value for money and that the public service delivery systems are working for all and sundry. That is one of the ways of providing a voice to citizens at the highest level of the state. That is our responsibility as legislators. And on that note, I want to thank you all for your kind attention and wish you successful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. We're looking forward to the debate on the constitutional review. I'm sure it will be very interesting and that it will be open to the public to actually attend and hear the debates and play our role as citizens. And thank you for also talking about laws that would be put in place that are discriminatory and that will be more inclusive. So we're hoping that we will see most likely the 30% quota for women, the disabled, and the rest who are in the vulnerable groups. Thank you. At this point, I would like to now introduce Her Excellency Ms. Sharon to give the opening statement. Thank you.
Hosseini Toure, National Assembly member. My dear friend Kunle from UNFPA, and my also dear friends Maddie and Pela from Westminster Foundation for Democracy. Thank you so much for inviting me along to join not only the celebration for the International Day of Democracy, but also to listen and perhaps even participate in the lively debate that I'm sure will follow. A slight departure from my remarks is if I may just start by congratulating the Honourable National Assembly member and his colleagues for having adopted the standing orders, the new standing orders this week. I'm told to pull the microphone down. As many of you will know, standing orders are an absolutely essential part of a high-performing democratic parliamentary process. And I was very pleased that the UK's Commonwealth Parliamentary Association was able to work with the Standing Orders Committee on your journey as you prepared for the new standing orders. So, we mark the International Day of Democracy to recognise the benefits of democracy and the rule of law to individual states and to support the rules-based international system. Strong democratic institutions and accountable government which uphold universal rights and the rule of law are the key building blocks for secure and prosperous states. Democracy, human rights and the rule of law contribute to long-term security and prosperity. There is a strong correlation between societies that are secure and prosperous and those that enjoy participative democracy, which is why the UK supports democracy worldwide, because we genuinely and fervently believe that it is the system of government that best allows for individual freedom and is the fairest way to govern human societies and states. Democracy rests on foundations that have to be built over time: strong institutions, responsible and accountable government, a free press, the rule of law, and equal rights for all people. As we know only too well for the Gambia, where human rights abuses go unchecked, we see the seeds of conflict sown, often with devastating consequences for communities and nations. Over the long term, the absence of democratic freedoms, good governance, and the rule of law impede nations' prosperity, deter international investment, restrict innovation, and reduce opportunities. So it's for all of these reasons that the UK supports and will continue support democracy around the world through country-specific support and by working to develop an international political environment that supports democratic transitions. We work with our UN partners, regional organisations, the EU, the African Union, the OSCE, the Council of Europe, and the Commonwealth to strengthen democracy work and support transitions. With the UK's Department for International Development, we're also incredibly proud to support the work of the Westminster Foundation for Democracy. Westminster Foundation for Democracy is a unique organisation which is funded by both my organisation, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and our Department for International Development, with the aim of strengthening parliaments and effective and accountable political parties around the world. Through them, we seek to share and promote our own experience and expertise, and I will come to that in a moment. The Magna Carta. So we've been thinking about democracy for quite a long time. The sealing of the Magna Carta on the 15th of June, 1215, marked the first step on the UK's journey towards parliamentary democracy and respect for individual rights, a foundation for our values and for many of the rights and freedoms that UK citizens enjoy today. In sealing the Magna Carta, King John accepted for the first time that his subjects were citizens, giving them rights, protections, and security. So while remaining copies of that charter may have faded long ago, its principles remain relevant today. The drivers, a concern about unrestricted power of the executive, the state's ability to curtail individual rights, and lack of due process in convicting individuals of crimes against the Crown. These remain just as relevant in the world today. But I have been asked a few times recently on social media and as I wander around, but what about Brexit? Isn't this democracy falling apart? And I would categorically say no, this is democracy alive and kicking in the UK. Alive, kicking and shouting very loudly. So what are we seeing? We're seeing one of the biggest changes that the UK has gone through for many, many years. People care. People are more politically engaged than they have been perhaps for decades. And not everybody agrees. But that is fine. People can disagree, they can express their views. Our media can talk about this. They can challenge our government if they don't agree with what the government is doing. We have our parliament that can actively debate. And for sure there have been some incredibly lively debates. There has also not been any violence. No violence by protesters, no violence by authorities. Hold that thought. And last but not least, we have an impartial civil service. So, yes, with the executive, there are very strong differences of opinion, and those are being worked through. But what our citizens know that they can rely on is a civil service that acts impartially on behalf of the elected government of the day. So yes, please continue to watch what's going on in the UK with interest. It is entertaining. I cannot give you precisely the answer as to what will happen when, but rest assured, we've had the Magna Carta with us for 800 years. Democracy is not going away soon. So thank you very much. I am looking forward to this debate, and please do feel free to ask any challenging questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'm sure most of us in this room are following the Brexit. And for me, for one, I hope they do get a deal before they do exit, for sure. Okay, so at this point we have come to the end of the opening with all the statements, and we shall now be forming into the clusters. My co-moderator has just joined us, Mr. Roach, and at this point I'm just waiting on Mary to actually let me know how the setting is going to be for the clusters. How are we setting up for the clusters?
Yeah, so,
Thank you. Yeah, it's too loud. Okay, so I think we will change the house. Those on the high table would be thrown out, sort of. So we want to this set up. We have panelists in the audience who will now come to occupy, in the other distance. So just give us 5 minutes.
We're coming to you live from the Ozone Bay Hotel
as mentioned earlier, we are here to cover the event, International Day of Democracy, and we have had a key statement by Her Excellency Saron Wado, the British High Commissioner. And at the moment, we now going to join the debate as participants about into groups. Here inside the conference hall, we have various political parties, and all of them will be participating in the national discussion. And we also have in our midst here the IGP is also here with us, and I also saw the UDP spokesperson Margatal and other political parties as well. But as democracy is all about inclusion, we also have